Okay, I'm about to tell you a ghost story that happened back in 1991 at this house on 40th and St. Paul in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was around 11 or 12 years old. Some family members of mine, they moved into this house. There was an apartment complex. There was an apartment on the lower level and one on the upstairs level. They lived in the upper level. Now, prior to that, it used to be a grocery store, and this home was built back in the 1900s. Rumor has it that it may have been a boarding house or maybe even a whorehouse because a lot of the rooms had like numbers carved in the door. So, anyways, in 1991, I had some family members that moved into that house. They ended up having a baby. They invited us over to come meet the baby, see the baby. We took pictures of the baby. So, when the pictures come back from being developed, I'm showing the pictures to my mom. I'm like 11 or 12 years old. And I said, oh my goodness, the baby looks dead. And I kind of laughed because, I'm 11 or 12 years old. And she's like, give me the picture. Let me see. She snatches the picture. She looks at it and she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, look, he's all covered in powder. He's like gray or blue or something. And she looks at the baby. She looks at the picture and she says, look, throw this away. Don't tell anybody about it. Like, throw this picture away. Don't tell anybody about this. At that time, I didn't really understand. So I threw the picture away. Couple of weeks later, the relatives that lived in that upstairs apartment, they're like, hey, do you and your sister want to come watch the baby because we want to go out? So me and my sister, we go to the apartment. We're watching the baby. So me and my sister, she's like a year and a half older than me. So we go there, we go to watch the baby, and the parents, the family members go out. And so we're sitting in the living room and we hear like footsteps and laughing, like doo 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 doo, coming up the steps, and then knock 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 at the door. So we go to the door and we're like, who is it? Nobody says anything. So we're like, who is it? They don't say anything again. So me and my sister are like, no, we're not gonna open the door. We go back in the living room, we hear the footsteps and the laughing going down the steps, doo 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 doo. Few minutes later, do 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 do, laughing, footsteps up to the door, boom boom boom, knock on the door. Me and my sister go to the door again. We're like, who is it? Like we're thinking at this point somebody's playing with us. They don't say anything, but then we hear them laughing and running back down the stairs. Do 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 do. So at this point, I'm telling my sister, like, okay, I'm going to stand by the door. This time we're going to catch him because we're thinking it's like some other kids in the neighborhood or something playing around, or like the downstairs people. So we hear the laughing and the running. Like, she's standing in the kitchen holding the baby. I'm standing there. They're running up the steps, do-do-do-do-do, and boom, boom, boom. They knock on the door. On the third knock, I whipped the door open and I yelled, caught ya. And nobody was there. Not a single person. Me and my sister looked at each other. We both had that creepy, eerie feeling. I slammed the door. I locked it. She yelled at me. She's like, get in the living room now. We run back to the living room. We hear laughing voices and them running back down the stairs. Doom, 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 doom. So we sat on that couch until my relatives came home. Okay, so when my relatives come home, we tell them what happened. They're like, well, we don't know because the door is locked downstairs. There's nobody in that other apartment. Nobody could get in. We locked the door. So we just, kind of let it go. But a few weeks later, that baby ended up passing away from SIDS. So now the family's like in turmoil. They ended up moving out of that house. A couple weeks after the funeral, we end up going to this old German lady who was like a psychic. Now, my family, my mothers, my grandmothers, they were all psychics. They frequently went to psychics. So we go to this psychic lady and she's never been to the house. She doesn't know the details. So she doesn't know exactly what happened and she's never been in this apartment. So as soon as we walk into her apartment, she walks right up to me. Remember, I'm 11 or 12 years old. And she's like, oh my God, you opened the door. Like, why did you open the door? And she scares me. And I start busting out crying because at this point I'm feeling like I did something wrong. And she sits me down and she's like, listen, you have the gift. Your family has the gift. And she's like, that is called the knock of death. When you hear 3 knocks, or a doorbell and you ask who it is and you don't get an answer and you don't see somebody, you don't open the door. Now, you can't necessarily avoid death, but at some point you just have to understand that when you're open to your gift, to your intuition, the knock of death will come. Throughout the years, that has proven true. But this story gets even crazier because then she's picking up on a mean, angry male spirit, and she feels as if there was a woman and a child that had possibly been murdered in that house. And she feels like it happened in a doorway. In between like the living room and the dining room. Well, the crazy thing is, remember that picture I took where the relative's baby didn't look good? That baby was in a swing in that exact doorway, and she had no way of knowing this. So after that, years go by, we kind of like let it go. Me and my sister were kind of just always like, we know this is true, we know this happened, we'll never forget it, it's scary, I hate going by that house. But then in 2019, I go on my Facebook and I'm writing up stories. October, I'm sharing stories like of all the scary things that have happened to me being a medium, being a psychic, all my ghostly interactions, and I talk about this story, but I did not say what house. Now, this house used to be called Chick's Corner because it used to be a grocery store, and the people that owned it, their name was like Chicks or something. So I get a DM, and it's a girl that I know her family, and she's like, I know what house you're talking about. You're talking about, look, most recent story about Chicks. She's asking me, she's like, was it about the house Chicks Corner? And I'm like, yeah, why? She's like, you're not going to believe this. So it turns out about 10 or 15 years later, she was babysitting some kids in that house, and they started to hear a baby crying in the back room. So they're hearing this baby cry in the back room. They're trying to open this door. They can't get in. They go around the other way. The baby's like crying louder and louder, but they're knowing, like her friend, and the kids she's watching, like they're getting paranoid because they know there's no baby in this other room. So much freaked out. So she got so freaked out, she called the people she was babysitting for and was like, come home. I need to go home. I don't want to watch your kids anymore. So they come home, and they actually ended up telling her the story of my family who had lost the baby. So if you've ever been to this house on 40th and St. Paul, Chicks Corner, the upstairs apartment, I don't know if the other apartments are haunted, but I know that apartment's haunted. Drop your comment. Tell me what happened to you, or if you know the history of that house, let me know in the comments.